welcome Zion Mauricio Benassa to the show. It's so exciting to get to meet you and discuss some of these really deep topics with you. We thought we would start by asking you tell us about your inspiration for this film. You've created this incredible documentary, which has reached millions of people in hundreds of countries. What was the inspiration for this film?
Yeah, well, thank you for having us in conversation with you. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, everything we tend to do has to have a personal connotation. We are little kids that are trying to grow in this universe, in this body, and trying to make sense of what it means to be human. Since we met, even before we met was individually, and when we met, it became our mission in a way. It's always in our skin, everything we do, from the work on spirituality we did before to now the work on trauma. So basically, to jump fully into it, it became apparent after being together for many years that this non-dual feeling, if you wish, of oneness was really not working very well, because she was pissing me off and I was making her mad in a relationship. So we realized there is another layer. And unless we start to look into who we are as human and not transcending to the...
we were before we started working on the movie, we were organizing a conference on science and spirituality for about already 7 years. And it had a beautiful feeling, but a little bit detached feeling from reality. We were kind of transcending all the practices, all the teachers were pointing a little bit on the transcendence path.
Which is valid and helpful, but is not all of it.
Coming back to Maurizio's point of view, it worked in our relationship. It was really nice for 5 years. We could transcend a lot, and it was spacious, and we were both things.
Right. But so it sounds like you two actually went through, I mean, I could say for both Will and I, like, you went through a process where you were a more of a, Eastern transcendent seeking path, even as a couple and in yourselves. And it sounds like you came to a point in that journey where you're like, wait, there's a much more relational field and interpersonal, intrapsychic thing that you have to deal with.
Correct. Or simply said, our trauma caught up with us.
We couldn't hide it. We couldn't hold it anymore. We couldn't bypass it for many years. It was so good. Yeah. But at one point, he said, dude, wake up. It's like,
And that year as well. And also we started turning towards more bringing therapy, psychotherapy to our events. And year 7, we had Gabor Mate as one of our keynote speakers. So
wow.
When we met him personally, also as a human being, we were very much taken by his truth-telling, direct way of being, and also his authenticity, which is something I personally have been missing in the spiritual community. Like spiritual teachers, they tend to be a little bit removed, detached, like there's not much vulnerability, not much humanness that is shared, which I think actually creates quite a bit of injury in some of these communities. And Gabor came fully on stage, fully authentic, fully owning, his brilliance and his shadow. And it was like, wow.
It was refreshing.
It was refreshing. And we could feel that it stirred up something in the audience that...
And it has. And we said, whoa, we should make a movie about this guy. Yeah, because we were a filmmaker before we met. And our first date actually was, we went to make a movie in India. So, and then with the conference, we stopped making movies.
Was that Shortcut to Nirvana?
Shortcut to Nirvana was before I met Zaya. It was in 2004. This one is called Rays of the Absolute, and it's free on YouTube. It's a movie about Nisargadatta Maharaj, one of the inspiration in our work, in our previous incarnation, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah. So Gabor was, we always wanted to make movies. Conference was just something, an incident, a beautiful incident in our personal growth. So Gabor appeared and said, let's make a movie about this crazy guy. And here we are.
Wow. Beautiful. I'm wondering about what it was like, I mean, for the audience in your spiritual conference to have Gabor come on the scene and give a keynote, and with all of the shadow and the authenticity, did it really change the conversation at the program?
I think it was a pivotal moment. We were already moving in that direction, but his appearance did steer us more in that direction.
And not only him.
And not only Gabor,
him, but Peter Levine,
but the conversation of trauma became really forefront in all of our following events. So we brought many different modalities and scientific research on trauma and all of that. A full integration we did not achieve between scientists, spiritual teachers, and trauma therapists. That was the long-term vision. We're not there yet. But we're hoping now with the movie and also with the conversations that we are producing to go along with the movie to get there.
In that direction more and more, No, the community responded. Yeah, sorry. Go.
I was going to say that I'm curious in your field and where you've been more in film and documentary, and in our work, and we've kind of danced like you have. We've sort of danced in the spiritual circles, and we're very much involved in the mental health field. Like this whole framework of trauma and the language has evolved a lot in the last 10 to 20 years, and it's becoming more front and center as a way to really understand ourselves and understand how we struggle and how we can grow. And is that just also what you've both come to and are seeing? Like this framework of trauma is really something that's very useful in terms of personal development and cultural development?
Yeah. To me, there is no other way around. To me, the bottom line is that in the awareness of our transcendence, of our divinity, in the awareness of our absolute divinity, because we are all connected. I'm God, but it's not a big deal because everything is God. So that's the bottom line. In that awareness, if you don't also consider your separateness, it's like you see this hand, but you only see one side and you refuse to look at the other. So to me, in the fine line between transcendence and embodiment lies the essence of being human. That's, to me, at the end of the day, that's a very simplistic way to say it. I'm sure you have something way more.
Well, no. One thing, like since the beginning of our organization, we went into like, wow, what can science tell us about our perception, right? Perception defines our reality. And we were a bit naive looking at perception as like only on biological level, like, oh, it's how the senses filter reality. And as we started learning more about trauma, well, trauma also filters our perception and defines what we perceive. So that was a whole different level of like, no, it's not just the senses, but there is also a layer on top of that filters additionally what we are tuning towards, what we're afraid, how we contract, how we expand, what we are drawn to, what kind of spiritual teachings we are drawn to has to do also with our trauma and our history. So
to me, going to what I was saying before, the embodiment, it's the way we act, the way we operate, the way we react to everything. We never, as we know, we never react to the moment. We react to our perception of the past or our projection of the future. And that's the trauma at the end of the day that defines that, right? It's our conditioning. So unless you analyze that and you get familiar with that, analyze is not the right word. Unless you get familiar, you understand and you feel it, you cannot be really embodied.
Like in our relationship, like I'm the type that is the glass is half empty, and Maurizio is the glass is half full.
Actually, it's fully full.
It's full. That is
I can see that. You're overflowing. And you're more like, wait, let's talk about this.
Right. No, and in the past it was very personal. Like, why are you always negative? Why are you always over optimistic? And now it's like, wait, it's not personal. It's how we're wired, how we've been raised, how we've been. So that creates kind of a sense of freedom in a way. We're not so identified. I don't feel so identified with my tendency for negativity bias.
Yeah, to me, to add another personal, even more personal layer. To me, my little boy was getting really, really terrified when she was acting on me. Whatever she was saying, I was in terror. I was like, now my little boy has learned to adore that little girl, the little hurt girl in her. And that to me is where our love is really blossoming.
Beautiful.
Because it's not the two of us meeting now. It's my little boy loving that little girl. And that to me that's the refreshing part. I see her differently. I don't see for what she says now, but I see why she says that, because I see her. Yeah,
I can relate so deeply to what you're saying in terms of the growth that comes with acknowledging the younger, more vulnerable, more tender, more dysregulated maybe parts of us. I remember in my early 30s, I met a Buddhist teacher, and I was in this transcendent path for many years, very deep, hours of practice a day, and yet I was still a complete mess in relationship. And my partner, my wife at the time, it was her little girl and my little boy were just constantly fighting. And there wasn't an adult around, to address it. And our answer to everything was go back and sit more. And, that kind of worked and kind of didn't.
Yeah.
And then I met people working with Peter Levine and, ended up studying with him and meeting Gabor. And it completely changed the conversation of how are we going to really fully embrace this non-duality that we do have? How can we stabilize the experience of that? And I think the only way I've been able to understand it is it comes through the healing and the awareness of these parts. And it's really, it's very profound to see that healing trauma is a spiritual path. It is a spiritual experience. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not separate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To me, healing is the only integrative way. Yeah. To me, healing trauma is definitely the way. Because what keeps me separated from oneness is my trauma.
Sure.
It's my inability to be relational to every being in this universe, human and animal and vegetal.
And even the deepest spiritual teachings cannot touch us if we are projecting onto the teacher, if we are bypassing or avoiding places in ourselves, then the teachings cannot really blossom as well.
Yeah.
It will stay here, It will stay here. Let me sit more. Stay there.
The deeper the deeper the trauma patterning, the more separate we feel. Yeah. And the more difficult it is to actually access these transcendent states.
Yeah. When you were both, this is more of a producer director question for both of you of the wisdom of trauma, and like how you were thinking about it in the process of filming and editing. Like, did you have sort of a big intention between the two of you as like, we want to get across a certain message about trauma? Or was it more of a discovery process of let's just go film and let's just put the pieces together and see what it looks like?
Yeah, it was the 100%. Second. And we also said never again like this. We're never going to do it again this way. I still
resist that because the magic of that, it's something, if you lose that magic, it's an insane process because it's an insane process to do it that way. But
no, we really kind of jumped instinctually. This is right. This is we have to follow and see where this goes. And it was very challenging at times because we felt like we're lost. Like, this is not a movie. This is an interview with Gabor. This doesn't go anywhere. So and then COVID hit. And then how do we complete it we didn't have enough footage to finish.
Wow. Let's come up with
that was the beauty and the curse, that there was something that emerged by us not having a rigid plan.
Yeah, but that's the magic. You have to be able to let. Oh God, no, I don't want to get too fluffy, but unless you are able to keep the listening, unless the relationship and the listening,
right? So sort of
and
that
if you have too much, if you have too much
process.
of a plot, too much of an idea, I want to go there, I want to go to Boston, I want to go to Boston. Well, if the road is taking you to Albuquerque, just start to go there on the way to Boston. Make it a little longer. You don't know. As the famous Rolling Stone said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. And that was the process, right? Because we really sincerely thought we have a movie that maybe 50,000 therapists in America would like. That was the goal. Not even the goal. There was no goal.
We were making a niche movie.
Movie.
This is not it's a fringe conversation.
Yeah, who cares about this, right?
So that really we had no idea the movie had a different life.
So what were the numbers, just so people know, in terms of, this thing took off?
At least way above 4 million people the 4 week.
The
4 or 5 million the first
week.
It was like, what?
Wow.
It exploded. It really exploded.
Yeah.
And it's the piece that is very surprising. We thought we were making an American movie. That was our fear. That's going to speak to this culture.
Yeah.
And the biggest surprise is actually our largest audience is international. Wow. And it speaks to many different cultures. We were going to book one night in Sofia. We were traveling in Bulgaria. And we said, okay, we're going to go one night, 20 people, nobody will come. We arrived there, sold out. One night sold out, second night sold out, third night. And now it's 3 months in the theaters. So now we are
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So exciting.
And we've received thousands of letters in these 2 months since we released the movie from people and organizations from all over the world. Feeling, they're saying, you told my story. I feel like I'm not alone. I felt validated by the movie.
And to me, is that the bizarre people, that's not the right way to say, but the unexpected people, right? I said, we have an event in Italy, in a castle in Italy every summer, right? It's a beautiful event. The admin of the castle, he said, but I heard about this movie. I sent in the movie. He completely was blown away. I said, wait, or the woman who takes care of my 92 years old cousin in Italy, her daughter came visiting from London, and she was saying, what, you made that movie? These things all around this, it's insane. Completely unexpected. There is not the geographic, geo-determined, oh, you are a therapist from a little on the left side. Completely.
It really touched a chord in the human psyche that I think it's very present at the moment in our collective psyche.
Yeah,
it's a great, your documentary came through at a very important time where we are right now. And when it was released, and there's a lot happening globally in so many different facets that are traumatizing to people, and that people are at least experiencing trauma or re-traumatizing, and not having a framework and a relationship to how to understand. And really brilliantly, the title of who titled this, by the way?
The Universe.
How did this? How did that come through, both of you? How did that happen? The Wisdom of Trauma, because it's a really great title, and I think it's a great title. It's very much, the way we talk about trauma. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering how that came through, both of you.
We wanted to have a title that really captures the essence of what Gabor was communicating in the movie. That our traumas are also the doorway to our deepest wisdom. So we were brainstorming, and we had just like 3 different titles, but this one was the strongest. So
by far. Because also, enough beating up on trauma, right? We need something. Is a tool. If we can use this tool, if you think of all the major CEO of corporation, they are the more messed up people in the universe. When we have interviews with the movie stars and the pop stars, those poor kids have been really seriously hurt, and they found a way through their trauma so trauma is a major tool we have. We are all here in this place, in this time, in this moment, the 4 of us, because of our trauma.
Right.
For better or for worse as well. For better or for so it's a tool, and using the word wisdom connect to trauma, I think is a very important. Let's start to use it, as a tool. Not like use it only as a hammer on your head. Use it also for nails once in a while.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah,
a lot of spiritual teachers, they would send their students to trauma therapists, and they would say, well, we don't deal with trauma, has nothing to do with spirituality. And it's like that gap needs to it is.
It's a big miss. Yeah, it suggests to me that there's a big avoidance and blind spot there for the teacher. For their own trauma. And we've seen how that plays out with gurus too often.
Right.
Certainly more than one guru that I studied with is no longer a guru anymore because of, I would say because of the shadow that wasn't acknowledged and addressed.
Yeah. And what's hopeful is I think collectively we are learning to recognize and see that as we become more intimate with our own shadow, we also recognize it out there more easily.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And the more amount of light you cast on something, the bigger the shadow it makes. So you better look there.
Right. For sure.
The more you feel like, the more you're in the light, the more you have something behind you very dark. You better look at it.
Yeah. What kind of takeaways? I mean, I'm really interested in, what did you two learn from making the documentary? Like what are some of the nuggets you got from just being involved in this project in terms of your own personal journey here?
Yeah. One thing I was so moved and I didn't expect is when we went into the stage of let's talk to people on the streets. Let's really speak about trauma from those that have suffered the most. And to see the amount of wisdom these people had, like the homeless on the streets of Vancouver or in San Francisco, and the level of intimacy they had with their pain felt so moving for me, so inspiring. Like they are deeply spiritual human beings. Because there was something about meeting those human beings who share their suffering and
see their humanity, and their knowledge. I mean, and we dismiss them just because they had a misfortune. And the stories why they are in that place is still makes me furious. I mean, there was somebody we met in Vancouver. He had a family, a job, and everything. He got hit by a car. And all of a sudden,
he lost
everything. He got it back. It's not even his fault.
And then just learning about how much we shame in society, people who are struggling with addiction or with homelessness, just how many misunderstood notions we have about those struggling on the streets. One thing that I was really touched by, we walked on the streets of San Francisco with someone who works with homeless people, and she's saying one of the message we are trying to get across to people is to just acknowledge those human beings on the street. Just say hi. Just look in their eyes. That's way more valuable than throwing them $1 or just recognize the humanness, the human being. Yeah. So there's something that opened for me in that space that we don't need to fix each other's problems. We can't actually. But what we can give one another is that kind of unconditional presence and like, I see you and you're not alone. That's what we all long. That's what we want.
Yeah, she made what's it called? A questionnaire to the homeless in San Francisco. What do you need? What do you need? And everybody was expecting, I need money, I need housing. I need to be seen. 90% of the people said I need to be seen and recognized. And to me, that blew my mind. It's not the dollar, you know? It's
and those humans are not a problem. I mean, the government, I think, spends $60,000 a year per homeless person in San Francisco. So it's not a matter of money that will solve it.
Wow.
So something about shifting the way we perceive each other. And like, if somebody, that's one thing I've learned, like I used to contract when somebody comes strong at me and I used to take it personally. And now it's like, no, there is pain behind that anger. There is pain behind that defensiveness, and to recognize it and to kind of, not to justify it, but don't perpetuate by pushing it or judging it or labeling. There's something for me has started shifting around just having more compassion for each other. You know, we've all suffered, and our adaptive behaviors were ways to survive. We still use those, but maybe we no longer need them, and we can help one another to.
And all this kid in prison. I mean, all this poor. I mean, it makes no sense how we treat each other. It makes absolutely no sense.
They've suffered the most.
They suffer the most. The more you suffer, the more you're gonna beat up.
Violent.
I mean, it's like
you're reminding me of, and I think you could probably speak to this more from a maybe non-American, perspective from your background. But I think I'm curious if it's the same in Europe as it is here, where I think we have this distinctly cultural problem of taking a big movement toward trying to solve a problem rather than actually stopping, feeling, digesting, witnessing, seeing. And this is global, of course, it's human, right? But what you're saying reminds me of when I was in medical training, I had a beloved teacher in the medical school who he was in the emergency department, and he would say, there's a saying, there's in the American cultural saying of don't just stand there, do something. And he reversed it to don't just do something, stand there. And he was bringing this teaching inside of the emergency room where people are coming in all kinds of catastrophic situations, and he would just be standing there, witnessing, feeling, and then the action comes from the seeing and the being. But it's very profound, this skip toward action without feeling, and it makes. I guess I'm curious if you agree with me. It seems like there's a certain uncomfortableness that feels in my system, in my body, like shame. If I'm not jumping to action right away, it's uncomfortable to not know what to do.
Yeah. It gives us the illusion of control, right? That's why we want to. I mean, it's interesting. This summer, I was in France, and there was like suddenly a street fight. And I was so shocked to see how the people responded and how the police reacted. The police was there really to regulate the crowd and to deactivate the conflict. They did not arrest anyone. Wow. Like I was there watching, observing for half an hour. The police didn't arrest the guys, and they went back and tried to fight again. They just stayed there, regulate them, put them aside, spoke to people to understand what was happening. Nobody got arrested. Wow. I was thinking, wow, if this was in the States, these two guys will be handcuffed and in the car in the first 5 minutes. And
exactly.
Very forcibly.
If they survive the arrest.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Police show up at a fight.
And think culturally, I mean, a fight between two guys. Oh my God. I mean, come on. It's a normal thing in every culture that your neighbors, you give a little slap. And that doesn't mean that your relationship is over. That's the other thing, right?
Right.
I remember in the village in where I grew up in Italy, in this village, as a 14 years old, I was going to the bar to play cards with this old man. We play cards. And there was the fascists, the communists, the priest. Everybody was there. And they were playing cards together. All of a sudden, they fight, but never became violent. But they scream at each other. Mm-hmm. That here they would arrest you for that as well, by the way. That's a different story. But then, like, if somebody was sick, everybody was there. And the funeral of somebody in a family, everybody was there. There was no, I fought with you 2 days ago because you don't believe in that. You're anti-vaxxer. I'm not going to come to your funeral. We are all in this together. We can be different. That's the beautiful line that we were saying today. I don't need to understand to love you. That's like, it's our new mantra.
It's I think these are the conversations we're in a lot over here. It's that level of emotional, like neurological, spiritual maturity is we're still very young as a species, very young. Because, my biology, it's like you were speaking to something that really spoke to me about, can you enter compassion first almost? If somebody's kind of coming at you intensely or defensive, whatever it is, and like, can you actually go into their experience for a moment just to even get them? And that sort of is an interruption from what feels like in my system, I'm starting to recognize like thousands and thousands of years that that's not what you do first.
Exactly.
It's not just even my personal trauma. It's just thousands of years of, if someone comes intense at you, you go into guarding, and you either get bigger or you get smaller. And that's like the system's wiring, I think. Exactly. And so this interruption of like, well, can you go into first what's happening over there, right? And getting into spaciousness. And I feel like I'm starting to be able to do that more. It's like I'm not a pro at it. But with the amount of work I've done on myself, which has been my whole adult life trying to work on myself, and I feel like I'm just sort of having the experience now where I'm starting to go there first. I'm like, we're very young as a species because it takes a lot of work to really be willing to try and enter that space of compassion when someone's, being a jerk and is triggered.
Exactly. And to tolerate the discomfort. That's another skill that I'm still learning. Like, we don't bypass it, don't try to solve it, just be with it. Yeah, it's okay to be uncomfortable. And to see if there's a way to feel safe in the discomfort.
As much as it's okay to be angry.
Correct.
As well. Yeah. It's okay to be angry. You just learn to regulate your anger, learn to, not to be destructive, not to project it on others,
Yeah.
Somebody come to you screaming. The point is, what happened to you before? Right. Why are you? I have nothing to do with you, but the parking lot is not the reason. What happened to you?
Yeah, that's one of the aspects in the movie. If you remember, Gabor was talking about how to teach children actually how to relate to anger, not to suppress it, not to be punished when they're angry, but to know how to express it and have relationship with their anger. Yes. I think that's a key parenting skill that we all need to.
So the movie's got another round coming, right? We want to talk a little bit about the next round here in October?
Yeah, from the 4th to the 10th of October, we're going to show again. The movie will be available for another week, 6 days, 24/7. People can access it for free by giving a donation. It's donation based. So a donation of $0 is fine. And if people can afford to donate, it's great because it helps us to diffuse more, to reach more organization and spread the movie. We are thinking about bringing it to prison, to all prison, to all high school in the US. There is a big project. It's a long story. From the 4th to the 8th, from the 4th to the 10th, and also we have conversation. We have 17 conversations on topic related to the film, panels and conversation. And I think somebody like here will be here.
Looking forward to it. I'm honored.
Yes.
Yeah.
So conversations led by Dr. Gabor Mate with visionaries, artists, doctors,
shamans, politicians. Yeah.
It's great.
It'll be a
very rich program.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll just say, who's ever listening, go check it out. It's, I think this is, particularly in the mental health field, this is a really important movie you guys made. So I just want to plug that here. Like, go check this out. This is it's a very it's a key instrument you've kind of injected here. So it's a good one. It's a big one. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I would just add to that, tell your friends about it because it's incredibly powerful. I've seen a few different movies with Gabor, and this by far is the most focused expression, I would say, of the work. And this kind of very deep contribution that you're making is more than just a different perspective for people about trauma. I feel like it's actually got the capacity to level up the level of consciousness that we were talking about a few minutes ago in the species, which is it's a huge challenge. It's a heavy lift to move ourselves forward, and to see the sacredness and the wisdom and the necessity of trauma and bringing the consciousness to it is it's very beautiful. So I just have deep gratitude for your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Such an honor.
Yeah. What are you two cooking up in the future?
Uh-oh.
Curious if you want to share anything.
Uh-oh.
Well, something is brewing about part 2 of the conversation, and go deeper into generational trauma and
collective society, intergenerational
and really
trauma.
go and tell those stories, not just of trauma, but also of wisdom and resilience from different cultural, spiritual perspectives.
Yeah. From the individual to the collective, sort of, to the societies.
So,
yeah.
That would be
we'll see how that's going to shape. This will be
that would be interesting.
a great challenge. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we wrap up with the question is going to be for both of you, because we ask every guest this. This is if you kind of have a billboard already because you've got your movie, but if you have a billboard that every human would see once in their life, there's just a paragraph on it, what would you tell that person?
That's a tough one. Yeah. Look for the wisdom in trauma.
Watch the movie. The Wisdom of Trauma. Coming next.
We were just talking. One thing we love is like you don't need to understand to love. Like we can love without understanding someone else's experience.
The billboard. You don't need to understand to love.
That's good.
I like that. That's good. The other one is watch the Wisdom of Trauma. Coming to the online near
tagline.
And in the theaters, we are actually studying today. We were discussing. We are exploring to do a theatrical release in the US and Canada, and possibly Europe and Australia.
Oh,
so which is really totally like what?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. More coming about that.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your work and coming on the show.
Thank you both.
Thank you both.
It's been a pleasure.
Such an honor and a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.